The Goodman Gallery in Cape Town, in association with the Galleries Curate, RHE, are currently showcasing works from South African artists in an international collaborative exhibition called Belly of the Beast. Now joining us on Zoom is one of the participating artists, Sue Williamson, and she's showcasing her body of work titled Messages from the Atlantic Passage. And this is an installation of engraved glass bottles, water tanks, steel shackles and fishing net variable dimensions. Sue, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sipiwe. It's a pleasure to be with you and with the listeners.
And it's good to have you on the show this morning, Sue. Now, before we get into your own body of work, just speak to us about what the Belly of the Beast exhibition is all about.
Well, first of all, I must correct you because the name of the exhibition has changed. It's now called Fathom.
Okay.
And it's about water, basically, water around the world, which is that is the theme of all of the 21 galleries which are cooperating in this project around the world. It's all about water and the essential role that water plays in our lives, both from a kind of existential point of view. We all need water every day, but what it's come to mean in terms of migrants and shipping and the role that it plays in borders, in fights, and all the ways that we regard water.
Now, speak to us, Sue, about your project Messages from the Atlantic Passage. What is that all about, and what was the inspiration behind it?
The Messages from the Atlantic Passage is an exploration of the slave trade in the years from the 1800s, which removed 12.5 million people from Africa and took them across in ships to the Americas to work on plantations and on farms as enslaved labor. And I started going into the old records, the documents and the archives, and I found that although we know very little about the people who were actually taken, there were actually lists of names, and one could track specific voyages. The one that this particular piece represents is a voyage from Benin across to Havana in Cuba, and it lists 534 people who were on that voyage. It gives their original African name, the new name which they were given by the slaver, its so-called Christian name, their age, their height, and their weight. And all of these pieces of information are engraved into these bottles, and they're suspended from a net above what looks like the holding tank of a ship, and water is dripping down. So it's as if these people have just been gathered up in a net and strung up there as treated like commodities, in fact. So that's what it's about. It's about recovering that history, honouring the people, giving them a name so that we are aware of the fact that there were people involved in all of this.
Yeah. And I believe that this new work, Sue, is an extension of your acclaimed Messages from the Moat. Tell us more about this and the elements you've added for this project.
Well, Messages from the Moat was a work that I made in 1997. It was for the second Johannesburg Biennale. And that was about people who were brought actually to Cape Town from other parts of the world under the Dutch East India Company, because it was interesting to learn that Cape Town actually has the best records of enslaved persons in the world, because the Dutch were very methodical. And it's when the Dutch East India Company set up in Cape Town, they were not allowed to enslave the local people. So they brought the ships that went to the Far East to gather spices that were going to be brought back to Europe, passing through the Cape, but also pick up people from the Far East, from Batavia and all the different countries, Indonesia, and bring them back to Cape Town, where they were sold in Cape Town into slavery. And so this piece, which was made for the second Johannesburg Biennale, was specifically a South African piece. And in that one, I didn't have the chains which were trailing down into the water. And that one is now in the collection of Iziko, the South African National Gallery. And I hope that one day soon they'll show it again.
You have used interesting material for this particular installation. Just unpack for us how it sort of interprets the theme of water.
Well, it's all about water. It's about people being taken from one continent across the water on these voyages across to the other side of the ocean, and how each of these voyages, the one that is featured at the Goodman Gallery at the moment, was a ship called Negrito, It carried a Uruguayan flag, and 534 people were loaded onto the ship, and by the time it got to Havana, only 494 remained, so the others were buried at sea, those who didn't survive the voyage.
Okay.
And of course, it relates, we still have problems all around the world of migrants and labor, and other work on the exhibition also relates to that problem. I don't know if you have some of the other images. I'm not quite sure what you're showing, but there's one by Kelwanji Kiehenda called Mare Nostrum, which means our sea, and it's photographs of the salt reserves in Arles, which have been taken from the ocean, and it looks as if there's a strange black creature flying over them, and it's a cloak that he's flung over various parts of these salt mines. And it's, yes, anyway.
Okay, yeah, and I do know, Sue, that there's a rich history behind your work, and I understand that each bottle is hand engraved with information about a different slave. Speak to us about that.
Well, I just thought that it was important to give people names. You know, it wasn't just a nameless mass of people who were carried across, but we see that there are children as young as 8 years old, little girls, boys. Each person has a name. They have been asked their name. We know where they were born, the country at birth, so that these very scanty records were kept. And there were just, I think, 12.5 million people who were removed in those years. And of course, it's never really been redressed properly, either by the colonial powers, which set in motion these slave voyages, or by the countries which received them, the Americas. So it's that history has never been properly addressed, and redress has not been paid.
And Sue, it's good to see that you've actually, breathed life into your exhibition. From what I can see, there's a whole lot of thought process and emotions that went into creating this project. Did this final product come out the way you had initially planned it?
It did. And I made it, first of all, it was shown in Basel in Switzerland on a big exhibition called Art Unlimited in Basel. And then it was invited to go to Kochi in India for the Kochi Biennale. And Kochi is a town in the south of India. And it's amazingly like Cape Town. It was also one of the outposts of the VOC. Many of the buildings are Dutch. So it seemed extremely appropriate to take that work there as well. Because, of course, the Dutch were one of the colonial nations which were most involved in the slave trade.
All right, just a quick one, 5 seconds, please. We're out of time. And for those interested to see this body of work, give us more details.
Well, it's located in the new Goodman Gallery, which is there in a beautiful it's an old building. It's an old convent in Somerset Road in Cape Town, just past Cape Quarter. And I hope people will go and see the show. It's on for about 2 months.
Sue Williamson, great chatting to you, and all the best in your exhibition.
Thank you so much.
There we go. That was Sue Williamson, and she's been speaking to us about her body of work that she titled, is installed at the Goodman Gallery in Cape Town as part of a group exhibition titled Belly of the Beast.